Hello there, people of the internet. Before we get started, YouTube, this right here is a bare bones semi-automatic rifle. It is not a machine gun, and the magazine only holds 20 rounds. This is very much a smaller magazine than your standard capacity 30 round magazine. Obviously it is smaller, only holds 20 rounds. This right here is a rifle that is in compliance with YouTube's policies. The ammunition that we are firing today is very basic, standard ammunition. These are not any kind of special bullets. These are just regular bullets going downrange. No problems whatsoever. Also in compliance with YouTube's policies. Alright, that being said, hello there, people of the internet. How is everybody doing today? I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. Today's conversation once again stems from a conversation that I was having with somebody else. He was a coworker, but a coworker that wasn't a coworker. I don't really know how to describe this situation I was in, but it was somebody who was, we'll just call him a coworker. It was somebody, then we're just going to call him a coworker for all intents and purposes. But I was talking with a coworker, and he was talking about how he had himself an AR-15 at home, and he had a magazine, one single magazine, full. It was a standard capacity 30 round magazine. He had it in his rifle. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin's my peacock. I got 4 of them. They're noisy ass birds, I'm telling you what. But he was bragging about how he had himself an AR-15 magazine, full 30 rounds by his bed. He thought he was ready to go for the apocalypse, and he was talking about how he didn't need my help because he had his equipment. He knew what he was going to do. And I was like, well, all right, let's go ahead and see what you can do. Go ahead and bring out your AR with a couple of mags, and we'll put it to the test, put your skills to the test, and see what you can handle. And the guy never did come out, but he had started talking about how he did not have the ammunition to spend. He only had the 30 rounds that was inside of his magazine. Apparently he had bought 40 rounds, spent 10 practicing with the AR, making sure it worked and whatnot, put the other 30 rounds inside of the magazine, put it in the AR, and left it in his bedroom for, I don't know, a year or two. I have no idea how long it was in his bedroom, honestly. But the guy obviously did not have a lot of run time with it, and he did not have a lot of accessories. Apparently the magazine that was in his AR was his only magazine, and the ammunition inside of that magazine was all of the ammunition that he had. Thank you, Kevin! Even Kevin doesn't like the setup that this guy had. This guy was definitely better off than a lot of other people who think that you don't need a firearm for any sort of situation whatsoever. But he was definitely not as far or as good off as he originally thought that he was. I was talking to the guy, and I was trying to get through to him that having multiple magazines to handle a situation in the event that you have to handle a situation, and having equipment to carry these magazines, and having equipment to, you know, handle your firearm, having just, there's all different sorts of equipment and whatnot. This isn't really a discussion about the types of equipment that you're going to need, but having these pieces of equipment is just as important as having the tools necessary to defend your life or handle whatever situation it is that you're wanting to handle. Keeping these platforms up and running, whether or not it's maintenance equipment or magazines or ammunition or spare sights if you're rocking plastic polymer sights which are absolutely going to break, or spare batteries for your optics or flashlights if it gets dark, or any sort of night vision if you anticipate having to handle some sort of situation at nighttime, or, you know, some sort of stock that, you know, absolutely fits your build, whether or not it's a telescoping stock or a fixed stock with some sort of adapter on it. Whether or not you are someone who has, I don't know, a situation where you prefer having some sort of vertical grip on your AR-15, whether or not you have different mounting systems or how modular it is. I mean, there's so many different things to talk about whenever it comes to having the AR. He had a Daniel Defense, bare bones Daniel Defense AR, and he was bragging about it because of how much money he spent on it. And he had spent all of his money on it. And at the time, I remember like talking to the guy, you probably should have gone with something a little bit more in the, well, whenever I talk to people about their budget for buying a firearm, I say, all right, spend half the budget on the firearm and the other half on ammunition and magazines and accessories and things like that. And 90 times or 90% of the time they don't listen to me, but that is just, them. So let's say something goes down with this guy. This obviously is not a Daniel Defense firearm, but this right here is the firearm that I have here. This is not my go-to firearm for in the event that something happens. My go-to firearm is a firearm that I do not show up on this channel, just because I do not want anyone knowing the actual equipment that I'm rocking. I have my channel equipment that I love playing around with, and then I have my personal arsenal that I keep hidden away from the population. But let's say you're out there rocking, rocking and rolling, and you come across, I don't know, a group of guys. It doesn't even have to be a survival situation. Maybe there's just a group of guys that roll up in a pickup truck that are looking to get into your house. And you pull out your AR and you start, popping shots off at them. Well, lo and behold, and guess what? One of the most popular platforms here in the United States just so happens to be in the hands of these people who rolled up in their trucks, and there's 5 of them. And they all start popping shots back at you, and suddenly you are very much outgunned. And with your standard capacity magazine, single standard capacity magazine of 30 rounds, you do not have the ammunition necessary to not only provide suppressive fire to be able to fall back to a more suitable position to an area where 5 guys aren't popping shots off at you, but, I mean, in that particular case, shot placement would absolutely be essential, but I would not recommend if you only have one single magazine going up against a crew of 5 guys looking to take you out with their ARs. I recommend just trying your best to get the hell out of there. Don't even try and stay there and fight. Of course, that's just a hyperbolistic, is that a word? Hyperbolistic situation that may or may not happen. I mean, depending on where it is that you live. Who the hell knows what might happen if you have specific enemies that you yourself want to watch out for. I don't know what you have going on in your life, but there very much could be a situation where one single magazine is not enough to handle whatever it is that you have to handle. I mean, hell, look at 2020 and all the riots and whatnot that went through all of these cities, just burning the places to the ground. I would not want one standard capacity magazine to handle a mob of 400 people coming to burn down my house and kill my family. That is absolutely not the situation that I would want to put myself in. I would want as many magazines as I could possibly hold. That is exactly what I would go for, and that is what I go for in my current setup. Like I said before, I'm not going to show off my current setup on this channel. It's just one of those things. I have my equipment, and it's my personal equipment. That stuff is my business. But on that equipment, I have 8 magazines of 8 standard capacity magazines and 1 in the firearm, so that's 9 mags, that's 270 rounds, approximately. I would feel much more confident handling whatever situation it is I have to handle with 270 rounds as opposed to the standard capacity 30 rounds that would normally be in one single magazine that I would have in my rifle. Let's say something goes wrong and you get hit. Do you have proper medical equipment to be able to withstand yourself? Or let's say the shelves in the stores are empty again. Let's say there's another big panic buy. Do you have food on standby? Do you have the necessary equipment to be able to not only protect yourself, but allow yourself to live? Lots of different things to cover. Now, I always talk about the importance of having some sort of sidearm in case your primary firearm does go down. I mean, it doesn't happen near as much as it used to, back in the 70s, earlier. Firearms were not all that reliable, especially the AR platform back in that day. I mean, there were like proven time-tested firearms like the M1 Garand or the M1A that were much more reliable than the AR platform back in the day, depending on the buyers that you were actually buying from. But I always recommend, I mean, things happen, I always recommend somebody has some sort of sidearm to go ahead and provide themselves with some sort of secondary means of protection, defense, cover, whatever situation it is that you're getting yourself into. Or if you have like a bystander or a, what's the word I'm looking for? A freeloader. If you have a freeloader come by and they don't have any sort of firearm to be able to protect themselves, then hey, if it's someone you know and trust, you might hand them your sidearm like, hey, guess what? you have my back now. How many magazines do you have for sidearm? How much ammunition do you have for sidearm? What sidearm are you rocking? For the longest time, not this one right here, I guess I'm not rocking it anymore, so I could... Okay. I have a Knights Armament 1911 that was my sidearm for a very long time. It was my go-to SHTF handgun in the event that something were to happen, mostly because I have a lot of 1911 magazines. Now, this is obviously not Knights Armament. This is a Turkish 1911 A1 clone. This is the 1911 that I enjoy showing off on this channel. But the Knights Armament 1911 that I have, I ended up getting myself something better, and something that had a better a better capacity in the magazines in the Knights Armament. Knights Armament was like typically 8 to 7 rounds because it was a single stack 45 ACP. And in my kit, I would carry 6 of those magazines and 1 in the gun. So let's just assume that I was rocking 8 round mags as opposed to the military accepted standard of 7 rounds. That would be 56 rounds of 45 ACP, 57 if I had one in the chamber of the 1911 that I was rocking. Not a very good capacity in terms of the amount of ammunition that you could otherwise carry. My new firearm has 18 rounds in the magazine, and it is a 9mm as opposed to the much heavier 45, and I have actually 6 rounds, or 6 magazines for that, plus 1 in the firearm. I'm not going to do the math on that one, but that is a substantial increase in ammunition for a firearm that is roughly the same size, roughly the same weight. The magazines are roughly the same size as well. Definitely a much better firearm to have for any sort of situation than the original 1911 platform, just because it is a smaller, lighter caliber weight frame. I mean, it's the one I have is a polymer frame. The ergonomics are better. Everything is better, right? I still love the 1911. I'm still very much a big fan of it, but it was definitely time to upgrade from the old system, so that is exactly what I did. Now, if you do not have anything and the 1911 is, you know, your dream gun and that's what you want, then hey, by all means, go ahead and go for it. Or if you do not have anything or if you do not have anything other than the 1911, then it will absolutely serve you well for whatever situation it is that you're going to be dealing with, assuming that you have the mags and ammunition to feed it. People tell me all the time, actually, I have had this conversation before, legitimately. People tell me, or somebody had told me, that they wanted a semi-automatic handgun simply because it is far easier to reload than a revolver. And I was like, oh man, that's actually a really good point. I'm glad that you know to do that. Tell you what, you have your new, I don't remember what it was, you have your new semi-automatic handgun, come out to my range. I got a personal range in my house. We'll go ahead and do some range blasting. So he comes out to my range, and he only had 1 magazine for it. And I'm like, how the hell, like, your thing was reloading quickly, and you only have 1 mag. Sitting there loading rounds into your 1 singular magazine is a hell of a lot slower than loading a cylinder of rounds into your revolver. Like, that's just one of the things that got to me. And he was like, yeah, I know, I'm planning on getting more. And here I am, like, what, this was like 2020, like the pandemic starting whenever he had bought that. This is 2.5 years later, and he still only has that 1 magazine. That's one of those situations where you want to make sure that you get yourself additional equipment to run whatever piece of equipment it is that you are using. You could have high-end cutting-edge technology, you know, the best of the best, like Daniel Defense, great ARs, but I would take this and my 11 magazines that I carry around, or what was it, 9 magazines that I carry around, I would take this right here over the Daniel Defense in 1 magazine every single day of the week. Now this right here is obviously a retro build. It's not made to be the most ergonomic, is that the word I'm looking for? The most ergonomic or practical setup. The handguard obviously is not, it's not meant for any sort of attachments. I do have a QD sling slot right here, or just a regular sling slot back in this direction. This is obviously a KP15 lower. This is a PSA upper, very much a poverty build. Not exactly a go-to rifle. This right here is absolutely a range toy, and that is why I have this out here on the channel. I will not show off my actual defensive AR on the channel. That is my own personal preference. But I would take the KP15 M16. What am I going to call that? I'm going to call it the KP16. Just, that's the nickname I'm going to give this rifle. It's an M16 based on a KP lower, KP15 lower. I'm going to call it the KP16. That's a clever ass nickname for that, I think. But I would take the KP16 over the Daniel Defense as long as I had my equipment to be able to rock it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what y'all's thoughts are down below. I know a lot of people who have bought themselves a handgun or a rifle or some sort of defensive piece of equipment during the uncertain times here in the United States, and they only have like one magazine for it and one box of 50 rounds of ammunition, and it's like the cheapest ammunition that they can find, like the full metal jackets. That's fine for range plinking. I mean, that is what I pretty much use on my channel here at the range. But as far as defensive ammo goes, you want to get actual legitimate defensive ammo to handle whatever situation it is that you're looking to handle. I always recommend that people do their research, figure out what it is that they want, and once you get what you want, get accessories for it. If something happens and you end up having to lug that thing around, you don't want to just like keep that thing loosely in your pocket. You want to get yourself a holster for it. You want to get yourself a belt for it. You want to get yourself a way to carry mags for it. You want to get yourself ammunition for it so you can feed it. You want to get practice in with it so you know where it hits, you know how it feels, you know all of the different things with it. There's a lot of different factors that go into a handgun. And people oftentimes, way more often than I would personally like, they will get themselves a handgun and a box of 50 rounds, not even put the ammunition inside of the handgun, put the handgun in the back of a closet somewhere, and assume that they are good for whatever situation it is that arises. And that is more often than not never the case. If somebody breaks into their house, then they're over there fumbling through their closet trying to find the handgun that is now, you know, on the bottom of the back shelf underneath the shoes and the rings and the pile of clothes because you're lazy and don't fold your laundry and just kind of throw it up into the corner of your closet. And I'm totally not being a hypocrite here because I definitely don't do that myself. But you're in there scrambling trying to get your handgun out. You finally find the box and you rip it out of there and you open up the handgun and you have, or you open up the case for the handgun, pull out the handgun, and you have zero training on it. You don't even know how the damn thing functions. You have seen the movies and you know that this thing comes out, so you mess around with it in an attempt to get that thing out. You see a button right here. Eventually, people, whenever I give people these handguns to let them try and figure out how it works, they always seem to manage to figure out how the magazine comes out. So these people are kicking in your door, probably have already gained access to your house by the time you figure out how to get the magazine out. And then whenever they try and figure out how to load rounds into the magazine, it's a 50-50 chance whether or not they load them in backwards or not. Let's say you load it successfully into the magazine, and you cram that magazine into the firearm, but because you have zero experience on firearms, you think it's good to go, so you go running out there, you're like, get the hell out of my house! You take aim, you pull that trigger, absolutely nothing happens because it's a single-action handgun, and you have no idea what that means. And you're just like, well, oh my god, this thing has bullets in it, it should be fine. You start scrambling around trying to see if the safety is on, and you think that might be the problem. Safety is in fact off, and you have no idea what's going on with this handgun, so you just gotta hurl it at them. But because it's a 1911, it cracks them in the skull, bounces across one skull to the next, takes them all out without even firing a single shot. It does so because it is a 1911, and it is absolutely world-ending. As important as the equipment is, knowing how to use it is just as important, if not more important. I'd rather somebody be in a situation where they have one firearm with one magazine and just enough ammo to fill that magazine, but they know how to actually use the firearm, than somebody who is sitting on stockpiles of ammo and mags and weaponry with zero idea on how to use any of it. Like, I would much rather somebody know how to use it and have a little bit than have no idea how to use it and have surpluses of it. Alright, well, let me know what y'all's thoughts are down below. I'm sure that people are either going to agree with me or yell at me because I am being foolish. Now, I do not know what kind of setups other people are rocking out there. The thing about civilian ownership of firearms is there's no universal setup but I'd say the setups are universal enough to where if you're rocking an AR-15, odds are whoever it is that you're going to come across in whatever SHTF situation you find yourself in is going to be, there's going to be someone there rocking an AR-15 as well with mil-spec mags, 223, 5.56 ammunition. There's going to be enough interchangeability there to be able to resupply with whoever it is that you come across. So if you are in a situation where you just cannot get additional mags or ammunition for whatever firearm it is that you're going to get, try to get something that is in a platform that you are going to run across in the event that something happens. I mean, if there's a mass shooter down at the local church or whatever, and you happen to have this thing in your cart, you start popping off shots at this guy, he starts popping off rounds back, and maybe you have a 20-round mag like I do, maybe you have a 10-round mag because you're in a restrictive state or something. Maybe something happens, and you are in a situation where you're out of ammunition, and let's say the police come rolling by, they have their own AR, they get hit, they go down, they can't use their AR. You know how the platform works because you have one and have used it, or maybe their AR has taken damage or something. They toss you the mag, or you toss them your AR and be like, hey, use this one instead. And they grab it, and now there's a functioning AR with their mag and their ammo, and it's just good to have the universality between all sorts of different people. Here in the United States, the AR is definitely a good way to achieve exactly that. So if you're in a situation where you cannot manage to get the things that you need, make sure that you're getting something that is very common, because odds are somebody else will have exactly what you need as well. I'm going to make a whole video on exactly that topic here before too terribly long. Anyway, like I was saying, thanks for watching, folks. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Description down below has a link to all sorts of different things, including email sign up and including Patreon. Go ahead and go check that out. I'm going to go ahead and run these rifles, and well, this rifle and this handgun, get some B-roll footage, go ahead and splice that into the video as I go. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. Now comes the fun part. Hey. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.